Hey guys, tonight we're diving straight into the ocean. Not the friendly kind you dip your toes into on vacation, but the endless planet-swaddling, oh my god, it's deeper than my debt ocean. It's the world's biggest water feature, except instead of a koi pond, it comes with giant squids, glowing plankton, and enough pressure to turn your body into a travel-sized pancake. If that doesn't sound relaxing, don't worry, it will. Because tonight, the ocean isn't here to drown you, it's here to tuck you in. You're about to drift through 100 soothing facts about Earth's last great wilderness, where the fish are older than trees, the whales gossip across continents, and sea cucumbers casually liquefy themselves like that one co-worker who insists they're flexible with deadlines. Before we start, if you actually enjoy this, genuinely, not just pity-clicking, feel free to like, subscribe, or leave a comment. But no pressure. This isn't Yelp. For now, dim the lights, put on a fan, maybe tuck your blanket around your shoulders like you're an honorary manatee. Let your mind go weightless. And ask yourself, what would it feel like to have your morning commute rerouted through the Mariana Trench? How would you explain to your boss that you were late because an octopus borrowed your car keys? Would you survive on jellyfish smoothies and glow-in-the-dark sushi? Hold those questions lightly, because in just a moment, you'll find yourself floating on the edge of an ocean that has been waiting for billions of years. Quiet, vast, and just absurd enough to carry you gently into sleep. Beneath your feet lies a water quilt so enormous, it wraps the planet. Covering 70% of Earth's surface, the ocean is less like a swimming pool and more like a cosmic-sized bathtub, only colder, deeper, and with way more seafood snacks hiding in the corners. If you could step back and see Earth from far above, what you'd notice first is not the continents, but this shimmering blue expanse. It dominates our world so completely that early astronauts nicknamed our home the Blue Planet. It isn't just decoration either. The ocean is Earth's climate control system, food supply chain, oxygen generator, and ultimate storage unit for all the weird stuff humans have dropped in over the centuries. Think of it as a blanket with a thermostat built in. The ocean absorbs sunlight at the surface, stores heat in its depths, and slowly releases it back into the atmosphere. Without it, Earth's climate would swing wildly, like trying to sleep under a paper napkin in a snowstorm. Instead, currents redistribute warmth from the equator toward the poles, smoothing out the temperature extremes. Every gentle breeze you feel, every quiet snowfall, is written in the language of water moving across the globe. But like all blankets, this one gets messy. Currents fold and crinkle, eddies swirl like tossed sheets, and coastlines catch the edges like bedposts snagging fabric. When the Gulf Stream carries warm water across the Atlantic, it's not just an ocean conveyor belt, it's the reason Europe doesn't spend all winter in freezer mode. Without the ocean tucking us in, life would be less comfortable and possibly unlivable. And this blanket isn't thin. Its average depth is over 600 meters. That's about 12 Empire State Buildings stacked on top of each other and still not poking out of the surface. The ocean holds around 97% of all the water on Earth. So if you ever thought of yourself as a land-dwelling creature, remember that you're just a guest at the edge of a very large swimming hole. The deeper you go, the more it feels less like a blanket and more like a weighted one. Pressure builds quickly, about 1 atmosphere for every 10 meters you descend. At the bottom of the Mariana Trench, the deepest place we've found, the pressure is more than 0 times what you feel at the surface. Imagine lying under 10 elephants, all politely stacked on your chest, and you're getting close. Yet somehow, fish, worms, and strange glowing creatures live down there as if it's the most casual thing in the world. And the blanket breathes. Microscopic phytoplankton drifting near the surface produce more than half the oxygen you inhale every day. Each breath you take has likely passed through these floating forests. It's as though every exhale joins a cycle with the sea, a quiet exchange where your lungs and the waves are co-authors of the same sentence. Even sound moves differently under this cover. Waves crash, whales sing, and sonar pings ripple farther than voices ever could in air. Whales whisper across ocean basins, their songs traveling thousands of miles. For comparison, imagine gossip you shared at the grocery store checkout line, still echoing in a supermarket 3 countries away. Of course, this blanket isn't always comforting. Storms churn the surface, tsunamis fold it into terrible waves, and climate change is warming it like someone left the heating pad on high. But even then, it remains vast and steady. It has endured ice ages, asteroid impacts, and continental breakups. So tonight, as you stretch out in your own blanket light, heavy or electric, you might picture yourself floating on the biggest one of all. Not stitched from cotton or wool, but from salt water and sunlight, endless, heavy, and alive. A quilt that has wrapped Earth for billions of years, carrying whales, storms, coral cities, and all of us within its folds. Light disappears quickly underwater. By 0 meters down, it's darker than your living room after someone unplugs the Wi-Fi router. Yet somehow, life thrives in this endless midnight, glowing like neon signs on an empty street. Imagine lowering yourself beneath the surface. At first, everything feels familiar, sunlight scattering, fish flickering in the shallows. But with every meter, the light thins. Colors drain. Reds vanish first, then oranges, then yellows. By 200 meters, the sea has turned a bruised blue-gray. By 500, the palette is gone entirely. Your world becomes a gradient of shadow until, finally, at 0 meters, even your own hands vanish before your eyes. It's the moment you realize your body is invisible, but your credit card bill is somehow still glowing in the dark. This realm is called the Midnight Zone, a place where sunlight never reaches. If you could float here, your ears would fill with silence so complete it feels physical, pressing against you like a second skin. Your chest would ache from pressure 1 ton per square inch, as if you were wearing an elephant as a fashionable scarf. And yet, this crushing, lightless void is not empty. Far from it, it's teeming with life so bizarre it makes cartoon villains look like sensible career choices. Take the anglerfish. This deep-sea celebrity dangles a glowing lure from its forehead like a built-in desk lamp. Small fish, hypnotized by the shimmer, swim closer, only to be swallowed whole. If humans had evolved like this, you'd walk around with a glow stick strapped to your head, attracting snacks and possibly your co-workers straight into your mouth. Efficient, but not great for dinner parties. Then there's the gulper eel, whose mouth is so enormous it looks permanently surprised, as if it just opened its electricity bill. It can unhinge its jaw to swallow prey half its size, folding its stomach like origami around unlucky victims. Or the vampire squid, which despite its name doesn't actually drink blood. Instead, it floats gently with cloak-like arms, living proof that even in nature, good branding doesn't always match the product. But perhaps the strangest magic here is light itself. In the absence of sunlight, evolution invented its own. Over 90% of deep-sea organisms are bioluminescent, carrying their own chemical lanterns. Some use the glow to attract mates, others to lure prey, and some to vanish entirely by erasing their shadows. Imagine you're at a party, and instead of slipping quietly out the back, you simply glow in the exact pattern of the wallpaper until no one can tell where you've gone. That's how shrimp and squid avoid predators camouflaged by luminescence. And while these animals look alien, their bodies are fine-tuned to survive conditions we can barely imagine. Some fish have eyes that point upward, scanning for the faintest silhouettes against the ghost of surface light. Others have no eyes at all, sensing vibrations instead. Many produce antifreeze proteins, flexible bones, or gelatinous bodies that don't collapse under pressure. They're not armored warriors, but soft, yielding, and weirdly delicate proof that sometimes survival belongs not to the toughest, but to the squishiest. The strangest part? We've barely seen any of it. More than 80% of the ocean remains unexplored. Which means right now, as you're lying in bed, entire ecosystems might be shimmering in the dark beneath the waves, unknown to science, glowing and flickering like cosmic Morse code. For all our satellites, smartphones, and streaming platforms, the largest part of our own planet is still playing hard to get. So tonight, as you imagine this midnight world, remember, the deep sea isn't just empty darkness. It's a hidden theater of light, pressure, and patience, where creatures thrive without sun, where silence hums like music, and where every flicker of glow is a reminder that life refuses to stop even in places that seem impossible. Imagine a sound system so powerful it could cross continents. Blue whales produce low-frequency calls that can travel thousands of miles, basically the original long-distance phone plan, except it's free and whale only. Picture yourself underwater, deep in the open ocean. No buildings, no traffic, no phone notifications, just vast blue stretching in every direction. In that silence, a single call from a blue whale could roll through you like bass at a concert, only this time, you're the concert venue. The sound is so deep and powerful that you don't just hear it, you feel it vibrating in your ribs, humming through the water like the planet's own ringtone. Blue whales are the largest animals ever to live on Earth, even bigger than the dinosaurs. They can stretch over 30 meters long and weigh as much as 200 tons. That's the equivalent of 33 elephants stacked into one streamlined body gliding through the sea. And when something that massive decides to make a noise, it doesn't whisper. Their calls can reach up to 180 decibels louder than a jet engine, louder than a rock concert, louder than your neighbor's leaf blower at 7 a.m. The difference is that underwater, these sounds carry, traveling not just blocks or miles, but entire ocean basins. What do they use these calls for? The same things we use group chats for: finding each other, flirting, sharing directions, and occasionally yelling across long distances. A single low-frequency note can stretch across thousands of kilometers, connecting whales that may never see each other but still exist in the same watery conversation. To humans, those sounds are barely audible. Our ears can catch frequencies between 20 and 20, 0 hertz, but blue whales communicate in the infrasonic range, sometimes as low as 10 hertz. That's lower than the rumble of an earthquake, lower than the deepest bass in your headphones. You might not even recognize it as sound. You just sense a vibration, like standing too close to a subwoofer that seems to rearrange your organs. Scientists have recorded blue whale songs, which can last for hours. They're not just random noises, but patterned sequences, evolving slowly over time like a never-ending symphony shared across oceans. Some of these patterns even change year by year, suggesting whales remix their tracks like traveling DJs. Imagine if humans all updated our national anthems every season, tweaking the melodies depending on mood and migration. But here's the surreal part. In the underwater world, noise pollution has started to drown them out. Shipping lanes, sonar, oil exploration, all of these add extra static to the ocean's soundscape. Imagine trying to have a heartfelt conversation in a cafe while someone revs a motorcycle indoors. That's the challenge whales face. Their calls are powerful, but the sea has gotten noisier, making it harder for their voices to travel as freely as they once did. And yet, they keep singing. Some whales adjust their calls, lowering or raising their frequency to cut through the din. Others change timing, calling in the quieter hours of the day, like leaving voice notes when the group chat is finally asleep. This adaptability shows resilience. Even in a noisier ocean, the world's largest animals still find a way to connect. If you could float nearby, you'd experience it like nothing else. Your chest would buzz with vibrations that pass straight through bone and tissue. You'd be wrapped in sound, not like a song in your headphones, but like being inside the instrument itself. The entire ocean becomes an amplifier, turning water into one giant speaker system. So tonight, as you listen to the soft hum of your fan or the distant creak of your house, imagine those sounds stretched into the deep, long, low notes rolling across entire continents, whales humming to each other in an endless blue concert hall. It's a reminder that the ocean doesn't just look vast, it sounds vast. And in that watery symphony, the loudest voices on Earth belong to the gentlest giants we've ever known. Tiny coral polyps are construction workers, slowly building limestone skyscrapers that stretch for miles. Within their delicate towers, fish, turtles, and crabs bustle like commuters in rush hour, except their trains are currents. Each reef begins with something almost too small to notice. A single coral polyp drifts through the water, finds a spot it likes, and settles down. It's less dramatic than buying real estate, but the commitment is lifelong. From there, the polyp begins to secrete calcium carbonate, laying down a stony skeleton as solid as concrete. Then another polyp joins, and another, until over years, decades, centuries, entire reefs emerge. Imagine office cubicles growing themselves into skyscrapers without any architects, and you've got the basic vibe. Despite looking like colorful underwater plants, corals are animals. Each one has a tiny mouth surrounded by stinging tentacles, grabbing plankton that float by like cosmic vending machine snacks. Inside their tissues live microscopic algae called zooxanthellae, which act like solar panels. The algae harvest sunlight, provide energy for the coral, and in exchange get a cozy place to live. It's the ultimate roommate situation. One pays rent in sugar, the other pays rent in housing. Over time, these colonies grow into immense structures. The Great Barrier Reef, for example, is visible from space. It stretches over 400 miles along Australia's coast, longer than the distance between New York and Miami. Within it, more species live per square meter than in most rainforests. Picture the busiest apartment block you've ever seen, then flood it with seawater and replace the elevators with swirling currents. That's life on a reef. The tenants are just as colorful as the buildings. Parrotfish chew on coral like construction workers, demolishing old brickwork, excreting fine sand that contributes to beaches. Sea turtles glide through like casual cyclists. Cleaner shrimp run tiny spas, picking parasites off fish who line up for appointments. Clownfish dart between anemones, living in tiny gated communities where tentacles act as electric fences. Everywhere you look, something is swimming, nibbling, hiding, or glimmering. The city never sleeps, though it hums at a pace slower than ours. The social networks here are intricate. Predators patrol like neighborhood watch, herbivores mow down algae before it smothers coral, and symbiotic partnerships run the whole economy. Even the colors are more than decoration. Bright hues warn predators, camouflage bodies, or signal availability, basically neon billboards that scream, "Do not eat me," or "Swipe right." And just like human cities, reefs face traffic jams. During spawning season, corals release billions of eggs and sperm simultaneously, clouding the water in a synchronized fireworks display of new life. It's chaotic, romantic, and a little awkward. Imagine every apartment complex in New York throwing a baby shower on the exact same night. But reefs are fragile metropolises. They thrive only in narrow temperature ranges, shallow, clear waters, and stable chemical balances. When the ocean warms or acidifies, corals expel their algae roommates. Without the algae's color and energy, the corals turn ghostly white, a process called bleaching. If conditions don't improve, they starve. It's like every building in the city suddenly going dark at once. Entire neighborhoods can collapse in silence. Still, reefs are resilient. Some bounce back after storms, regrowing like phoenixes from rubble. Others adapt by partnering with more heat-tolerant algae, essentially upgrading their solar panels. And humans, for once, are trying to help. Scientists are gardening corals, transplanting young polyps, and even experimenting with 3D printed reef structures to give new life a foundation. Imagine urban planners restoring a crumbling city, brick by brick, except the bricks are alive. If you could float above a reef at dusk, you'd hear the faint crackle of snapping shrimp, see fluorescent corals glow under ultraviolet light, and watch as day shift creatures retreat while night shift hunters emerge. The whole place flips, as if the city has two economies, one by sunlight, one by moonlight. So next time you see a picture of a reef, don't think of it as scenery. Think of it as downtown. A city built not of steel and glass, but of tiny, tireless creatures stacking limestone apartments in the dark, housing millions of residents who don't even know how extraordinary their neighborhood island, an underwater metropolis, humming quietly beneath the waves, busy and brilliant, and all without a single traffic light. Sharks have been gliding through oceans for over 400 million years. When the first trees were still deciding how to grow branches, sharks were already cruising like timeless underwater Ubers. It's strange to think about, but these sleek predators have been patrolling the seas since before there were forests, flowers, or birds to sing in them. Long before the continents looked anything like they do today, sharks were already sharpening their evolutionary business model. Swim forward, eat things, repeat. While entire dynasties of creatures rose and fell trilobites, giant amphibians, dinosaurs, sharks just kept showing up, uninvited but unbothered, like that one co-worker who's mysteriously survived every company restructuring. And despite their reputation, sharks aren't reckless monsters. They're engineers of efficiency. Their skeletons aren't even made of bone, they're made of cartilage, the same stuff in your nose and ears. This makes them lighter, more flexible, and less likely to sink like an abandoned shopping cart in a river. Their skin is covered in dermal denticles, tiny tooth-like scales that reduce drag. Swimmers and swimsuit designers literally copy the pattern for speed. Sharks are the original sports car blueprint, only with fins instead of leather seats. Over millions of years, they've experimented with design. Some are small enough to fit in your hand, like the pocket-sized dwarf lantern shark. Others, like the extinct megalodon, stretched over 15 meters long, basically a tour bus with teeth. Today, there are more than 500 species of sharks, from hammerheads that look like flying mallets to goblin sharks with jaws that slingshot forward like a broken vending machine. Each one is a reminder that evolution has a playful streak, especially when it comes to faces. But here's the real kicker. Sharks have survived 5 mass extinction events. Volcanoes, ice ages, meteors. Sharks shrugged and kept swimming. Trees? They're relative newcomers, only around 350 million years old. In evolutionary terms, sharks are the ancient marathon runners, while trees are the new kids who just showed up with shiny shoes. Imagine a family reunion where your 400-million-year-old shark uncle keeps reminding the younger cousins that he was around before leaves were trendy. Their senses are tuned for survival. Sharks can detect a drop of blood in an Olympic-sized pool. They can sense electrical impulses from muscles twitching meters away, like reading the biological Wi-Fi of every creature nearby. Their vision adjusts to low light, perfect for dawn hunts. And yet, for all their adaptations, most sharks pose little to no threat to humans. In fact, you're statistically more likely to be injured by a falling coconut, a vending machine, or your own furniture than by a shark. The fear we carry of them is outsized, a myth built more on movies than on science. What's more, sharks play a vital role in keeping ecosystems balanced. They control prey populations, shape fish schools, and maintain the health of coral reefs by keeping grazers in check. Take sharks away, and the ocean's careful food webs begin to unravel. In many ways, they're less villains and more janitors quietly preventing ecological messes while getting zero credit. Yet despite their resilience, sharks are vulnerable now in ways they never were before. Overfishing, finning, and habitat destruction threaten many species. It's sobering to realize that after surviving everything Earth has thrown at them for hundreds of millions of years, the biggest danger they face is us. The timeless survivors might not outlast our appetite for soup. Still, imagine the calm of a shark's world, slow, steady heartbeats, a constant forward glide, eyes scanning the blue with no need for branches or leaves to break the view. They've been here since before the first forests grew, and may yet outlast the skyscrapers we've built. So the next time you hear the word shark, don't think of movie monsters. Think of evolutionary persistence, streamlined patience, and ancient travelers who've seen the world change again and again, yet remain unshaken. Older than trees, older than fear, and still out there gliding quietly beneath the waves. These ghostly drifters pulse through water with no heart, no bones, no brain. Just a bag of nerves that somehow negotiates with the ocean, better than most of us can negotiate a parking garage exit. Jellyfish are among the oldest life forms on Earth, floating around for at least 500 million years. That means they were pulsing through primeval seas before fish had jaws, before trees sprouted leaves, before almost anything that feels familiar to us existed. And in all that time, they never bothered to invent a brain, which honestly feels like the ultimate power move. Instead of central command, jellyfish run on a nerve net, a loose lattice of neurons spread across their transparent bodies. No headquarters, no decision-making committee, just distributed teamwork. When they pulse their bell, they're not consciously choosing to move forward. Their nerves simply respond to changes in water, light, or touch. It's like your body running entirely on reflexes, no overthinking, no self-doubt, just vibes. And somehow, this system works beautifully. Jellyfish ride currents with casual grace, drifting where the ocean carries them, pulsing only when necessary. Researchers have found that some species actually sleep, entering a restful state even without a brain to regulate it. They slow their movements, conserve energy, and then wake to drift again, proving you don't need neurons in a skull to take a good nap. Despite their fragile appearance, jellyfish are quietly formidable. Some grow tiny, no larger than a fingernail, while others stretch longer than blue whales, with tentacles trailing like endless strands of living lace. Their bodies are 95% water, so holding one feels less like touching an animal and more like picking up a thought. But their survival strategies can be ruthless. Their tentacles are lined with cnidocytes, specialized cells containing spring-loaded harpoons tipped with venom. Brushing against one can inject thousands of microscopic stingers into prey or into an unsuspecting swimmer. For fish, it means a paralyzing end. For humans, it's more like nature's taser, delivered by a creature that doesn't even know you exist. Imagine being smacked by a wet noodle that also doubles as a security guard. Jellyfish also outsmart waves by mastering buoyancy. Many species expand and contract rhythmically, creating lift that allows them to move vertically in the water column. Combined with ocean currents, this makes them surprisingly effective travelers. Swarms of jellyfish called blooms can stretch for miles, drifting like armies of living parachutes. In some parts of the world, they clog fishing nets, overwhelm power plants, and even sink boats. All this from creatures that technically don't think. And while their movements seem aimless, research shows they're better navigators than we once believed. Some species can sense Earth's magnetic fields, orienting themselves in ways that suggest a primitive compass. Others time their vertical migrations to follow plankton, rising at night and sinking during the day. All without a brain, all without planning, just instinct wired into gelatinous flesh. Perhaps the most fascinating of all is the immortal jellyfish Turritopsis dohrnii. When stressed, injured, or aging, it can revert its cells back to an earlier stage, essentially rewinding its life cycle. Like turning back from middle age to childhood, jellyfish style. It's not true immortality. Predators and disease still end many lives, but it's close enough to make you question why we spend billions on anti-aging creams, while jellyfish simply reboot. And here's the paradox. For all their alien strangeness, jellyfish are fragile indicators of the ocean's health. Their populations surge when ecosystems are out of balance, thriving in warmer, polluted waters where other species falter. In this way, blooms can act as warning lights, nature's way of reminding us that the sea is changing. So tonight, picture them drifting silently in the dark, translucent bells glowing faintly, tentacles trailing like fine threads in invisible currents. They are creatures without brains, yet masters of survival. Proof that sometimes you don't need complex thoughts to endure. You just need to float, pulse, and let the tides carry you. When conditions shift, Octopuses can edit their RNA, the instructions that tell their bodies how to function. It's like hitting settings on your DNA and casually updating your operating system while swimming. For most creatures, DNA is destiny. It's the hard drive, the blueprint, the sacred script that cells follow to build proteins and keep the body running. But octopuses don't play by those rules. Instead, they treat RNA, the working copy of DNA, as a draft. If the environment changes, if the water warms or cools, if survival demands a tweak, octopuses can edit their RNA on the fly. Imagine being able to update your immune system the way you download an app, update bug fixes, performance improvements, and new skin pattern added. This flexibility gives them extraordinary adaptability. In colder waters, for example, octopuses edit their RNA to adjust how their neurons fire, keeping signals flowing smoothly even when the temperature drops. Where other animals would slow down or falter, octopuses stay sharp, like someone casually switching from dial-up internet to fiber optic, while the rest of the neighborhood freezes on buffering screens. And of course, their biology doesn't stop at RNA trickery. Octopuses are famous shapeshifters. With no bones to hold them back, they can squeeze through openings the size of a coin, flowing like liquid into spaces you'd swear were impossible. Their skin, covered in specialized cells called chromatophores, can shift color and texture instantly. Pebbly one moment, smooth the next. Glowing or striped or invisible depending on mood and environment. If you tried this at work, you'd walk into a meeting disguised as the wallpaper, then leave as a leopard print armchair, and no one would ever see you coming. Their nervous system is as unusual as their genome. 2/3 of their neurons aren't in their brain at all, but distributed through their arms. Each arm can taste, touch, and even make decisions semi-independently. If you severed an arm, please don't, it could still grab food and try to feed itself. It's as if you had 8 little sidekicks, all capable of improvising without waiting for instructions. Which makes sense, juggling 8 limbs at once would overwhelm even the most advanced nervous system. Delegating is the only way forward. Pair that with intelligence, and you've got an animal that defies every stereotype of simple sea creature. Octopuses use tools, unscrew jars, escape aquariums, and prank their keepers by squirting water at lights to short out the power. There's even a documented case of an octopus rearranging objects overnight, simply because it could. Picture a roommate who not only updates their own biology but also reprograms the Wi-Fi when you're asleep, just for entertainment. But here's the kicker. Their lives are short. Most octopuses live only 1 to 2 years. After mating, many die within months. It's as if the universe poured all its creativity into making the perfect alien genius, then set the timer to self-destruct almost immediately. They're brilliant, mysterious, and fleeting, a reminder that intelligence doesn't always need centuries to leave an impression. Some researchers speculate that octopuses' strange biology may be why they feel so different, alien even. Their ability to rewrite RNA has led to comparisons with science fiction organisms, the kind that adapt instantly to new environments. Add their flexible bodies, distributed brains, and near-magical camouflage, and you start to see why conspiracy theories sometimes whisper that octopuses don't quite belong to Earth. Of course, science says otherwise. But the suspicion lingers every time one slips through a crack in the aquarium glass and waves goodbye. So tonight, imagine yourself with their gift, updating your body to match your environment, shifting your skin to match your bedspread, sending one arm for a glass of water while another flips your pillow to the cool side. Not worrying about permanence, only possibility. Because the octopus reminds us that life doesn't always follow a script. Sometimes it edits, improvises, and adapts, rewriting the rules as it goes. Clownfish start life as males, but if the female leader disappears, the dominant male transforms into a female. It's the ocean's way of saying, management roles are flexible, just keep swimming. In the human world, corporate hierarchies are complicated. Promotions involve endless emails, awkward handshakes, and maybe a slice of sheet cake in the break room. In the ocean, clownfish skip all that. If the boss dies, the second in command simply changes sex and takes her place. No HR paperwork, no LinkedIn update, just a complete biological shift, as natural as breathing salt water. Clownfish live in tight-knit groups inside sea anemones, which act like underwater fortresses. The anemone's tentacles sting almost everything except the clownfish, which have protective mucus coats like invisible armor. Within this safe haven, a strict hierarchy rules. At the top is the dominant female. Beneath her is a breeding male. Below him are several smaller, non-breeding males who patiently bide their time like interns waiting for a promotion. If the female leader vanishes, whether by predation, old age, or an unfortunate run-in with a curious barracuda, the system doesn't collapse. Instead, the breeding male undergoes a transformation. Hormones shift, reproductive organs reorganize. Within days to weeks, he is now she, fully capable of producing eggs. The next male in line moves up to the breeding role, and the cycle continues. It's smooth succession planning, nature's version of cross-training employees for every position. And clownfish aren't the only ones pulling this trick. Many reef fish can change sex when circumstances demand it. Parrotfish often begin life as females and later become males, donning brighter colors as they rise in rank. Russes do the same, shifting roles depending on which members the group needs most. Some even switch back and forth multiple times in a lifetime, like aquatic shapeshifters adjusting to the flow of the social scene. The advantage is obvious. In environments where mates can be scarce, flexibility ensures reproduction continues. Imagine a town with only one bakery. If the baker retires, someone else must learn to bake bread or everyone goes hungry. For fish, sex switching is the ultimate job security system. It also makes for fascinating social dynamics. Clownfish groups, for instance, maintain peace by keeping strict size hierarchies. If a smaller male grows too big and threatens the dominant pair, he risks eviction. Better to stay in your lane, shrink a little if necessary, and wait for opportunity. It's a strategy built on patience and adaptability, qualities humans could probably use more of when stuck in traffic. Even the act of transformation feels surreal. Hormones like estrogen and testosterone rise or fall, tissues reorganize, and behavior changes to match. A male-turned-female clownfish doesn't just gain the ability to lay eggs, she also takes on the leadership role, defending the anemone, managing her group, and chasing off intruders. Biology and behavior move in lockstep, as if the fish uploaded a brand new personality patch along with the body update. And while this might sound bizarre, it's not sloppy or unstable, it's efficient. Instead of wasting energy producing eggs and sperm at the same time, many fish switch only when necessary. This saves resources while maximizing survival. It's like a family business where one person handles everything, but only when the situation calls for it. For us, it's almost unthinkable. Imagine humans being able to change roles in relationships simply because circumstances demanded it. Your office manager retires, and suddenly you're not just promoted, you're transformed into an entirely new version of yourself, complete with the biology to match. A logistical nightmare for clothing sizes, but an elegant solution for the continuity of life. So next time you see a clownfish darting in and out of its anemone, think of it not as a cartoon character frozen in one identity, but as a flexible strategist, part of an ancient lineage that solves problems in ways far stranger and smarter than we might expect. In the ocean, gender is less about permanence and more about practicality. Just keep swimming, and when the tide shifts, be ready to shift with it. If you dropped Everest into the Pacific's Mariana Trench, its peak would still be a mile underwater. It's less a swimming hole, more an inverted skyscraper no elevator can reach. The Mariana Trench sits like a scar in the western Pacific, stretching nearly 1,500 miles long and plunging to depths of almost 11,000 meters. That's about 36.0 feet, deeper than commercial airplanes cruise above your head. If the Grand Canyon feels impressive, imagine flipping it upside down and then stacking about 7 of them on top of each other. That's the kind of scale we're dealing with here. Pressure builds relentlessly as you descend. At the Challenger Deep, the trench's lowest point, the pressure is over 10 times what you feel at the surface. That's equivalent to 8 tons pressing on every square inch of your body. To put it in perspective, it's like wearing a rhinoceros as a hat, except multiplied across your entire skeleton. Humans would be flattened instantly, but deep-sea creatures carry on as if it's just another Tuesday. And what kind of creatures? Ones that seem borrowed from science fiction. There are amphipods, tiny crustaceans that thrive where sunlight never reaches. Some of them contain compounds resistant to pressure, chemicals scientists study for future medical uses. Microbes cling to rocks, feeding on minerals from the Earth's crust rather than on sunlight, proving life doesn't need a golden sky to survive. These organisms represent one of the strangest truths. The trench is a place where life thrives not in spite of harshness, but because of it. Exploring it has been one of humanity's greatest challenges. The first crewed descent happened in 1960, when Jacques Piccard and Don Walsh piloted the bathyscaphe Trieste nearly 7 miles down. Their view? A small fish and some muddy seabed. Then, nothing but darkness. The next visit wouldn't come until 2012, when filmmaker James Cameron squeezed into a one-person submersible and descended solo. He described the seafloor as alien, a barren plain with life scattered like whispers in the dark. Imagine traveling to the bottom of the planet only to discover it looks like the world's loneliest parking lot. More recently, robotic submersibles have been sent to explore. They've captured footage of snailfish with translucent bodies, swimming serenely in pressures that would crush steel. These animals are delicate yet resilient, proving that life at the bottom isn't monstrous, it's graceful in its own strange way. The trench is more than a hole, it's also a geological wonder. It marks where one tectonic plate dives beneath another, a process called subduction. This slow-motion planetary recycling system creates earthquakes, fuels volcanoes, and helps shape Earth's surface. Without subduction zones like the Mariana Trench, the planet would look and function completely differently. The trench is less a scar and more a seam, stitching the crust of Earth together while occasionally tearing it apart. It's also a vault. Plastic waste, lost shipwrecks, and even human pollution have been found down there, proving that our impact doesn't stop at the surface. Microplastics swirl even in Challenger Deep, a reminder that the ocean carries our fingerprints to the furthest reaches. Imagine throwing something in the trash, only to have it resurface 7 miles down, waving back at you. And yet, despite all we've learned, more than 80% of the trench remains unexplored. The sheer depth and crushing pressure make it one of the least studied places on Earth. For all our satellites orbiting the sky, we know more about the surface of Mars than about this underwater abyss. The irony is almost comical. We've sent rovers to another planet before we've fully charted the canyon in our own backyard. So tonight, picture yourself drifting down, deeper and deeper, past the reach of light, past the last fish with working eyes, past the crush of silence itself, down into a valley so deep, even the tallest mountain couldn't breach its surface. A place where pressure could crush you flat, but where fragile creatures glow, swim, and continue their quiet lives. The Mariana Trench, Earth's most secret basement, vast and patient, waiting in darkness. From plankton lighting up waves to squid flashing Morse code, the deep sea is full of life forms that glow like living lanterns. It's like Times Square, but quieter and with better camouflage. Imagine swimming through pitch-black water when suddenly sparkles. Tiny points of light shimmer around you, outlining your movements as if you're swimming through a galaxy. This is bioluminescence, the ability of living organisms to produce light. It isn't sunlight, it isn't electricity, it's chemical magic, a reaction between luciferin, a light-emitting molecule, and luciferase, an enzyme, inside a creature's body. Together, they create a glow that can be green, blue, or even red, depending on the species. For humans, it feels like enchantment, but for ocean life, it's just business as usual. Plankton glow when disturbed, their tiny sparks cascading through the surf like liquid starlight. Entire waves shimmer along beaches, turning shorelines into glowing edges of the night. Swimmers leave glowing trails, their limbs sketching light paintings across the sea. It's as if the ocean itself decided to buy fairy lights. Down in the twilight and midnight zones, bioluminescence becomes a survival tool. Anglerfish dangle glowing lures from their heads, tricking smaller fish into mistaking the light for food. Once the prey gets close, snap, gone. Some jellyfish release glowing clouds when threatened, startling predators long enough to slip away. Imagine being mugged in a dark alley and distracting your attacker by suddenly turning into a disco ball. Effective, if a little flashy, squid use light for communication. Some flash rapid pulses across their bodies like underwater Morse code, signaling to others in their group. Others create patterns to confuse predators, flickering stripes like moving illusions. Scientists have even watched deep-sea squid use their glow-like headlights, illuminating the water in front of them as they search for prey. Somewhere, a squid is basically driving through the dark ocean with its brights on. Then there are hatchetfish, whose glowing undersides erase their shadows. By matching the faint light from above, they make themselves invisible from predators below. It's a strategy called counter-illumination, and it's basically the ocean's stealth mode. While we build fighter jets and stealth bombers, fish solved the problem millions of years ago with glowing bellies. Bioluminescence isn't just for predators and prey, it's also for romance. Some species use flashes of light to attract mates. Firefly squid, for example, gather in massive groups off the coast of Japan, their collective glow turning the water electric blue. It's a spectacle of biology and courtship combined, like speed dating with neon signage. But perhaps the most haunting glow belongs to the deep, miles below, where no sunlight ever reaches. Creatures like lanternfish, dragonfish, and siphonophores drift in eerie radiance. Some species have headlights, others flashing chin barbels, still others glowing spots lined down their sides. Each one pulses like a lantern carried through infinite darkness. If you were there, suspended in the void, it would feel less like swimming through water and more like floating in space, surrounded by tiny stars that breathe. Humans have harnessed bioluminescence too, at least for wonder. Tourists travel to places like Mosquito Bay in Puerto Rico, where glowing plankton light up kayaks with every paddle stroke. Scientists study the chemistry for medical imaging, hoping to use the glow as markers inside cells. Even artists and designers have dreamed of glowing gardens powered by bioluminescent plants, replacing street lamps with quiet, living light. And still, most of it remains mysterious. Over 3/4 of deep-sea creatures are thought to use bioluminescence, but we've seen only a fraction of them. Somewhere in the abyss, a new species may be flickering right now, unnoticed in the endless night. So tonight, as you dim your lamp and settle under your blanket, picture the ocean glowing softly beneath the waves, plankton tracing galaxies along the shore, squid spelling messages in pulses, jellyfish turning defense into fireworks. It's the Earth's original nightlight, gentle, quiet, and utterly alive. Each dolphin develops a unique whistle that other dolphins recognize, basically their own watery ringtone. Imagine your friends calling you not with words but with a personalized kazoo solo. Dolphins are social to the core. They live in pods that can range from a handful of individuals to hundreds, constantly swimming, playing, and hunting together. In such busy societies, communication matters. While humans rely on language, dolphins use an orchestra of clicks, whistles, and squeaks that travel far underwater. Among these, the signature whistle stands out, a sound pattern each dolphin invents early in life and keeps forever. It's less of a random noise and more of a name, a sound mark carved into the ocean itself. When a dolphin calls another, it repeats that specific whistle. Studies have shown that dolphins recognize their own names, even when produced by a computer-generated whistle, proof that the sound isn't just noise, it's identity. Imagine hearing a robot voice shout your nickname across a crowded subway and instantly knowing it's meant for you. That's the dolphin experience. Every day, signature whistles don't just identify individuals, they build connections. A mother dolphin and her calf develop a duet of whistles, echoing back and forth like a lullaby. Friends call each other over long distances, maintaining bonds even when separated by miles of water. Some dolphins even imitate each other's names, not as mockery but as a kind of affectionate greeting, the aquatic equivalent of borrowing someone's hoodie. And the complexity doesn't stop there. Dolphins also use clicks for echolocation, bouncing sound off objects to see their environment in three-dimensional sonar. They can detect the shape, size, and even the density of objects this way, like carrying around a built-in ultrasound machine. Combine this with whistles, body postures, and physical touch, and you get a communication system richer than most of us use on a Monday morning before coffee. Researchers suspect dolphins may even string whistles together, forming something close to sentences. While we're still far from translating dolphin conversations, experiments show they can understand symbolic language and remember training commands years later. Some have even demonstrated the ability to comprehend syntax, recognizing the difference between bring the ball to the hoop and bring the hoop to the ball. That level of flexibility suggests their communication is more than just signals, it's language with depth. And like humans, dolphins gossip. Signature whistles sometimes spread through a pod when individuals are especially social. You could think of it as retweeting someone's name, amplifying their presence in the group. Imagine if your co-workers started repeating your ringtone all day just to let everyone know you'd walked into the office. Annoying for us, but for dolphins it reinforces social bonds. The emotional side of their calls is striking too. Dolphins have been observed mourning dead companions, swimming alongside them and producing long, mournful whistles. They comfort each other, celebrate reunions, and coordinate hunts with bursts of sound that shift depending on excitement. In other words, their voices carry not just names but feelings. And unlike us, dolphins don't need smartphones, signal towers, or Wi-Fi. Their voices travel through water, bouncing along currents with clarity we can barely match with technology. Some calls carry for miles, allowing dolphins to stay in touch across vast distances of ocean. It's the original group chat, powered by lungs and fins. So tonight, as you drift towards sleep, imagine the ocean alive with sound, not chaotic noise, but an intricate network of names, greetings, and conversations echoing through the blue. Every whistle is a name, every click a story. Pods weaving through the waves, calling to each other with voices unique as fingerprints, filling the deep with songs that say, simply, I am here, you are here, and we are together. These microscopic water bears have shrugged off freezing, boiling, and even the vacuum of space. If Earth ever holds an eviction sale, tardigrades will be the last tenants standing tiny, wrinkly, and still rent-free. At first glance, tardigrades don't look impressive. Barely 0.5 millimeter long, they resemble plump, 8-legged gummy bears trudging around in moss, lichen, or puddles. If you scooped up a handful of wet leaves and looked through a microscope, you might find a few waddling slowly, as if every step was a reluctant sigh. Cute, maybe. Fierce? Not exactly. And yet, these tiny creatures possess survival skills that put superheroes to shame. When conditions turn harsh, too hot, too cold, too dry, tardigrades perform a trick called cryptobiosis. They curl into a dry husk called a ton, shutting down almost all activity. Their metabolism drops to less than 0.01% of normal. In this state, they're practically timeless, able to wait decades before rehydrating and springing back to life. It's the equivalent of humans deciding to nap through an apocalypse and wake up fresh for breakfast. This ability lets tardigrades endure extremes that would instantly kill most organisms. They've survived temperatures just above absolute zero, where molecules barely move, and above boiling, where water thrashes like an angry kettle. They've endured crushing pressures greater than those in the Mariana Trench, and radiation levels hundreds of times what would shred human DNA. In 2007, some tardigrades even went to space. Exposed to the vacuum and radiation outside a spacecraft, many revived upon returning to Earth, as if nothing had happened. Imagine astronauts peeling off their helmets mid-spacewalk and still showing up to work on Monday. That's tardigrade energy. Scientists are fascinated by how they do it. Part of the secret lies in special proteins that protect their DNA and form glass-like structures inside their cells, preventing damage. Some studies suggest tardigrades produce unique molecules that shield against radiation, like microscopic sunscreen woven into their biology. They're not armored tanks but flexible survivors, using chemistry rather than brute strength to stay alive. And their habitats aren't exotic. You don't have to dive to deep trenches or climb icy peaks to find them. They're in gardens, on rooftops, in gutters, thriving wherever there's a bit of moisture. They march slowly across grains of sand, munching on algae, oblivious to the fact that they're indestructible legends living rent-free on your patio furniture. Their resilience raises big questions. Could tardigrades colonize other planets if carried on spacecraft? If life exists elsewhere, might it resemble something like them, simple, small, but ridiculously tough? Some scientists even wonder if tardigrades could survive long enough to hitchhike through space on meteorites, drifting between worlds. If so, life's story might be more about patience than progress. Despite their toughness, tardigrades aren't invincible. They can still die from predation, long-term stress, or simply bad luck. But their ability to pause existence and restart later makes them unlike almost anything else on Earth. They blur the line between life and stasis, as if nature wanted to prove that persistence matters more than size. If you could shrink yourself down and walk among them, you'd see slow-moving herds grazing through moss like tiny plush cows. No rush, no ambition, just quiet resilience. While whales sing and sharks patrol and corals build cities, tardigrades simply wait out eternity in the background, unimpressed by drama. So tonight, as you settle into bed, imagine being as unbothered as a tardigrade. Deadlines pass, seasons shift, the world gets noisy, and you? You just curl up, shut down, and wait for better weather. Because sometimes the greatest survival skill isn't strength or speed. Sometimes it's knowing when to pause, shrink into yourself, and trust that life will begin again when the water returns. Some Antarctic icefish keep swimming thanks to special proteins that prevent their blood from freezing. Think of it as a built-in anti-slushy setting, more efficient than any winter windshield fluid. In the frigid Southern Ocean, water hovers just below freezing. For most creatures, this would spell instant disaster. Cells would crystallize, blood would freeze, and life would grind to a halt. But the Antarctic icefish glide through this icy water as if it were a heated pool, their survival owed to antifreeze glycoproteins flowing through their veins. It's not magic, but biochemistry. Their blood contains proteins that bind to tiny ice crystals, preventing them from growing. In effect, the fish's bloodstream runs a constant de-icing program, like a self-maintaining freezer. The adaptations don't stop there. These fish lack red blood cells entirely. Their blood is clear, almost transparent, because they live in water rich with dissolved oxygen. Without red cells, their blood is less viscous, able to move smoothly through their bodies, even in freezing temperatures. Imagine trading in your thick, clumpy paint for a perfectly thinned watercolor. Smoother, lighter, easier to flow. To cope with the cold, icefish have oversized hearts that pump more powerfully than those of most fish. They also have larger gills and more capillaries, spreading oxygen throughout their bodies with efficiency. Every part of their design is tuned to squeeze life out of an environment that would kill almost anything else. They are not glamorous creatures, often pale, ghost-like, with translucent skin, but they are survivors. Their antifreeze blood was discovered in the 1960s, sparking fascination among scientists. Since then, researchers have studied these proteins for potential medical and industrial uses. Imagine organ transplants preserved longer, ice cream stored without freezer burn, or cryogenic experiments improved by mimicking fish blood. Nature's engineering often inspires human invention, and in this case, survival chemistry might one day help us too. But the ice fish's story isn't just about proteins, it's about endurance in a world of extremes. The Southern Ocean is dark for months at a time, battered by storms, and locked in ice. Temperatures dip to levels where steel can become brittle. Yet beneath the surface, these fish continue to hunt, breed, and drift with the currents. Where we would need thermal suits, heated shelters, and hot cocoa, they swim casually with biology as their only armor. And they're not alone. Other polar creatures have also found ways to bend the rules. Some Arctic cod produce their own antifreeze proteins. Polar amphipods scavenge through icy waters with bodies hardened against the cold. Even tiny plankton produce antifreeze compounds, making the polar seas a chemical arms race where the prize is simply not freezing solid. For ice fish, though, there's a price. Lacking red blood cells makes them vulnerable in warmer waters, where oxygen is less soluble. Their clear blood is perfect for polar seas but would be disastrous elsewhere. They are specialists, locked into their niche by evolution's trade-offs. If the climate shifts too quickly, if oceans warm beyond their narrow limits, even antifreeze blood may not save them. And yet, for now, they thrive. They've taken a place where life should be impossible and made it home. They've turned icy seas into highways, not obstacles. Their pale bodies drift through the dark, not flashy, not loud, but proof that survival doesn't always belong to the strongest or the fastest. Sometimes it belongs to the weirdest. So tonight, as you burrow under blankets against the chill of your room, imagine blood that never freezes, a heart strong enough to keep flowing against the odds, and a body transparent enough to hide in the blue-black sea. The ice fish isn't majestic like a whale or dazzling like a coral reef, but it's a quiet lesson whispered from the poles, that even in the harshest cold, life finds a way to glow faintly, swim slowly, and keep moving forward. Before they mastered the deep, ancient whale ancestors had legs and wandered shorelines. Picture a hippo-like creature slowly realizing the pool was more fun than the patio. It sounds absurd, but it's true. Whales, the largest animals ever to roam the planet, began their evolutionary journey as land-dwelling mammals. Their story starts about 50 million years ago with a group of creatures called Pakicetus. These wolf-sized animals lived near rivers and coastlines in what is now Pakistan and India. They looked nothing like whales, long snouts, 4 legs, furry bodies, but they shared one secret. Their ears were already tuned for underwater hearing. Evolution had begun whispering that their future lay not on land, but beneath the waves. As the millennia passed, descendants of Pakicetus began spending more time in the water. One branch became Ambulocetus, nicknamed the walking whale. Imagine a creature the size of a crocodile with stumpy legs and webbed feet, paddling through shallows but still able to clamber awkwardly onto land. It probably hunted like a crocodile too, lurking near riverbanks, then lunging at prey. Graceful? Not really. Effective? Absolutely. From there, the transformation accelerated. Limbs shortened, tails lengthened, nostrils crept up the skull toward what would one day become blowholes. One species, Rhodocetus, had a long, powerful tail and reduced hind legs halfway between beach stroller and dolphin impersonator. By about 40 million years ago, fully aquatic ancestors like Basilosaurus appeared. Despite the name king lizard, Basilosaurus was a massive whale stretching up to 50 feet, serpentine in shape, with tiny hind limbs no longer useful for walking, but still hanging on as evolutionary leftovers. These early whales looked bizarre. Some had elongated bodies, others retained useless little legs, as if nature hadn't yet decided on the final design. But slowly, the blueprint solidified. hind limbs shrank away, front legs transformed into flippers, tails evolved flukes for propulsion. Their breathing apparatus adapted too, with nostrils sliding higher on the skull to let them surface for air with minimal effort. Bit by bit, the patio was abandoned for the pool, and then the pool for the open ocean. And while whales were learning to swim, they were also learning to sing. Fossil evidence suggests early whales developed complex inner ears capable of detecting low-frequency sounds. This adaptation paved the way for today's spectacular whale songs, which travel for hundreds of miles beneath the waves. It's strange to think, a lineage that once walked dusty riverbanks now fills the sea with music. The shift wasn't just about anatomy, it was about opportunity. Oceans offered abundant food, from schools of fish to clouds of plankton. Whales grew larger and larger, their size both a defense against predators and an advantage for long migrations. Eventually, this evolutionary gamble produced the modern blue whale, the largest creature ever to exist. Heavier than any dinosaur, descended from a dog-sized mammal that once tiptoed through reeds. Even today, traces of that land-based past remain. Whale skeletons still carry tiny remnants of pelvis bones, buried deep inside their massive bodies, ghosts of hips that once supported legs. Embryonic whales briefly grow limb buds, only to lose them as development continues. It's as if their history is written into their very bones, a reminder of their terrestrial ancestors. Scientists piece together this story by studying fossils, DNA, and comparative anatomy. Each discovery revealed another chapter of a migration that spanned millions of years. It's one of evolution's most dramatic U-turns, mammals leaving the sea for land, then deciding to return permanently to the water, trading paws for flippers, lungs for blowholes, legs for tails. So tonight, as you picture whales gliding serenely through ocean blue, remember their humble beginnings. They were once awkward walkers, fumbling at the shoreline, chasing meals in shallow rivers. Now, they are masters of the deep, singing through water worlds their ancestors never imagined. From patio to pool to ocean, whales remind us that change is constant, and sometimes the greatest leaps begin with the smallest steps. These squishy creatures can soften their bodies until they flow into cracks like living jelly. Then they firm back up again, basically the ocean's answer to shape-shifting furniture. End quote. Sea cucumbers don't look like much at first glance. Long, lumpy, often brown or grey, they resemble forgotten sausages drifting along the sea floor. But don't let appearances fool you. These creatures have a survival toolkit that makes superheroes look underprepared. Their party trick? They can alter the stiffness of their bodies almost instantly, shifting from firm to floppy and back again. The secret lies in their connective tissue. Sea cucumbers can reorganize the proteins in their body walls, making them rigid or soft depending on what they need. If a predator approaches, they might liquefy to ooze into a crevice and disappear. Once hidden, they stiffen again, anchoring themselves firmly so they can't be pulled out. It's like having the ability to switch between being a beanbag chair and a locked safe at will. This shape-shifting power is useful in daily life too. Sea cucumbers crawl slowly across the ocean floor, feeding on detritus bits of organic matter, plankton, and sand. As they move, they vacuum up the seabed, digest the edible particles, and expel the rest. In doing so, they recycle nutrients, keeping marine ecosystems healthy. Think of them as the ocean's janitors, cleaning constantly and getting paid in algae snacks. But their defense strategies don't stop at liquefying. When truly threatened, some sea cucumbers eject their internal organs. Yes, you read that right, they spit out their guts as a distraction. Sticky, toxic entrails tangle predators while the sea cucumber slips away. Over time, the organs grow back, as if nothing happened. It's the biological equivalent of tossing your wallet to a mugger and then regrowing a new one at home. Sea cucumbers also breathe in a peculiar way. Instead of lungs or gills, they pump water in and out of their anuses. Inside, a branch structure called the respiratory tree extracts oxygen. It may sound unglamorous, but it works. Life in the ocean doesn't demand style points, only function. In some cultures, sea cucumbers are prized as food and medicine. Known as bêche de mer or trepang, they're harvested, dried and eaten, often considered a delicacy believed to boost health and vitality. Ironically, the very creatures that can liquefy and rebuild themselves have also become a symbol of resilience in human traditions. Scientists are fascinated by their tissue-altering abilities. Understanding how sea cucumbers control stiffness at the cellular level could inspire new materials. Imagine medical implants that harden or soften on command, or robots that shift between flexible and rigid forms depending on the task. Once again, the ocean hides blueprints for technology we're only beginning to imagine. Yet sea cucumbers remain humble. They don't flash lights like jellyfish or sing like whales. They don't sprint like tuna or intimidate like sharks. Instead, they shuffle quietly, cleaning the seafloor, dodging danger with bizarre strategies, and reminding us that survival often belongs to the strangest designs. If you could shrink yourself and wander alongside them, you'd see a silent parade of sausages inching across the seabed, occasionally melting into cracks like spilled pudding. No rush, no drama, just patient recycling. In their own way, they are guardians of the ocean floor, making sure the cycle of nutrients continues unbroken. So tonight, as you settle into bed, imagine having their gift, the ability to soften and sink into comfort, to become liquid against the mattress, and then to firm up again when you need strength. The sea cucumber doesn't look glamorous, but it embodies one of life's simplest truths. Sometimes, survival is about flexibility, both literal and figurative. Ocean sponges are just networks of cells filtering water, yet they coordinate to pump, clean, and recycle like silent janitorial systems. No brain, no drama, just efficiency. Sponges are among the simplest multicellular animals, yet they've been around for over 600 million years. That's older than dinosaurs, older than flowers, older even than sharks. They don't have brains, stomachs, or nerves. No beating heart, no flashy organs. And yet, they've survived longer than most lineages, running one of the most effective resource management systems in the ocean. Their bodies are built like sieves. Water flows in through tiny pores, passes through a maze of canals lined with specialized cells, and exits through larger openings. Along the way, sponge cells capture bacteria, plankton, and organic particles, turning seawater into food. A single sponge can filter thousands of liters of water every day. Imagine a creature the size of a loaf of bread quietly cleaning an entire swimming pool daily without asking for overtime pay. What makes sponges fascinating is how their cells coordinate. Each cell type performs a specific role. Choanocytes pump water with tiny beating flagella, amoebocytes carry nutrients, pinacocytes form protective outer layers. There's no central command center, no brain delegating tasks. Instead, sponges function like decentralized collectives, where each cell knows its job and just does it. In human terms, it's like running a city entirely on volunteers who never argue, never call in sick, and never ask for a raise. Despite their simplicity, sponges shape marine ecosystems in profound ways. By filtering water, they remove excess bacteria, recycle nutrients, and keep coral reefs healthy. Some species even host symbiotic microbes that produce antibiotics, pigments, and other compounds. The sponge becomes not just a cleaner but a chemical factory, producing substances strong enough to fend off predators or pathogens. Scientists have mined sponges for compounds that show promise in medicine, from antiviral drugs to cancer treatments. The quiet cleaner turns out to be a pharmacy disguised as a rock. Sponges also build habitats. Large barrel sponges, some as tall as a human, provide shelter for shrimp, crabs, and small fish. In some reefs, you'll find whole neighborhoods of creatures living inside sponge cavities, safe from predators. It's apartment living, but with flowing water service and automatic waste removal included. And here's a strange fact. Sponges can reassemble themselves. If you blend one up in a lab, please don't try this at home. the individual cells can regroup and rebuild into a functioning sponge. It's as though you shredded a city block into dust, and the bricks floated back together into apartments, streetlights, and bakeries. Their ability to self-organize hints at one of life's fundamental truths. Complex order can arise from simple rules. They aren't flashy movers. Sponges stay rooted in place, anchored to rocks or seabeds, yet they grow slowly, sometimes for centuries. Some deep-sea sponges are over 0 years old, making them among the longest-lived animals on Earth. While other creatures chase food, flee predators, and rush through short lifespans, sponges simply endure, patient, still, and quietly busy. Of course, their simplicity comes with quirks. They don't breathe in the way we do. They don't have blood or nerves. Instead, everything they need is carried by the flow of water. They are, in essence, plumbing brought to life, networks of pipes wrapped in jelly-like walls, yet capable of persistence that outlasts empires. So tonight, as you drift towards sleep, imagine a city with no mayor, no gridlock, no bureaucracy. Just a quiet system, filtering, recycling, and providing for its residents. That's the sponge. No organs, no drama, only calm and persistence. Proof that sometimes the simplest designs endure the longest, humming along beneath the waves like ancient watery metronomes. Decorator crabs attach algae, sponges, and even toxic sea anemones onto their shells like walking thrift stores. Not for vanity, but for survival, the ultimate wearable camouflage. Unlike humans, crabs don't have malls, tailors, or discount racks. What they do have is an instinct for self-decoration. With specialized hooked hairs on their shells, they grab whatever materials are available, bits of seaweed, coral fragments, scraps of sponge, and attach them like wearable art. The effect is stunning. Some look like shaggy tufts of kelp. Others resemble encrusted rocks. Some even carry live anemones which not only disguise the crab but sting potential predators. It's not high fashion, it's biological armor. The technique is called decorating behavior, and it's found in more than 75 species of crabs. Young crabs decorate the most, covering themselves completely. As they grow larger, some rely less on camouflage, either because they're too big for most predators to bother with, or because they've grown confident in their natural armor. In a sense, decorating is like training wheels on a bike, helpful early on, optional later. But for those that stick with it, the creativity is endless. A decorator crab living in a kelp forest might cloak itself in kelp fronds. One living on a sponge-dominated reef might wear sponges. Their wardrobes are location-specific, curated collections that reflect the environment. It's as if each crab maintains a personal brand, minimalist, maximalist, or somewhere in between. The choice isn't random. Crabs prefer materials that provide the best protection. Sponges and algae help them blend in. Anemones add an extra layer of defense with venomous stings. In some cases, the crab even benefits from the relationship, as the anemone gains mobility and access to more food. It's fashion as symbiosis, wearable companions who pay rent in poison. Watching them decorate is oddly relatable. Crabs carefully snip pieces of algae, rotate them, and place them in just the right spot, like shoppers holding up shirts in front of a mirror. If a predator approaches, the crab freezes, relying on its costume. To fish or octopus predators, the crab simply looks like part of the scenery. The disguise doesn't just confuse it, saves lives. And this behavior has been refined over millions of years. Fossil evidence shows decorator crabs have been practicing self-styling since at least the Miocene epoch, around 20 million years ago. While humans were still a distant idea, crabs were already pioneering sustainable, locally sourced fashion. Their decorating behavior is so strong that even in captivity, they continue the habit. Place a crab in a tank with fabric scraps, and it may attach bits of cloth to its shell. Give it glitter, and you'll have the ocean's first drag performer. Not because the crab has any sense of aesthetics, it simply treats every available material as camouflage. The fact that it occasionally looks fabulous is just a bonus. Of course, decoration has its downsides. Carrying too much algae can make the crab heavy and slower. Some predators eventually see through the disguise. And shedding molting their shells means crabs must start over every time they grow. Imagine redesigning your entire wardrobe from scratch every few months. Exhausting for us, but routine for them. Still, the strategy works. Decorator crabs survive by being unnoticed. They are living reminders that sometimes the best defense isn't strength or speed, but clever disguise. So tonight, picture these little crustacean couturiers moving slowly across the seabed, clad in algae capes, sponge hats, and anemone accessories. They aren't vain, they aren't frivolous, they're survivors wrapped in camouflage couture. The ocean floor becomes their runway, silent and strange, where every crab struts unseen in an outfit stitched by instinct. Phytoplankton, those tiny floating plants, make more than half the oxygen you're inhaling right now. Every breath you take has been filtered through a microscopic drifting forest. It's easy to think of oxygen as a gift from trees. We thank the Amazon rainforest, the redwoods, and the oak in your neighbor's yard that drops acorns onto your car. But the truth is, most of your breaths come not from forests on land, but from invisible forests in the sea. Tiny phytoplankton, drifting in endless numbers, are responsible for producing more than half of the planet's oxygen. When you inhale, there's a good chance part of that air was crafted by something too small to see. Phytoplankton aren't glamorous. They're microscopic, plant-like organisms that live near the ocean's surface where sunlight can reach. Using photosynthesis, they take in carbon dioxide, soak up sunlight, and release oxygen. In the process, they also become the base of the marine food web, feeding everything from krill to whales. If the ocean is a living body, phytoplankton are its lungs and its breakfast buffet rolled into one. There are countless types: diatoms with their glassy shells, dinoflagellates with spinning whips, cyanobacteria that are among the oldest life forms on Earth. Collectively, they form clouds in the water so vast they can be seen from space. Satellite images show blooms spreading like green swirls across entire coastlines, temporary oceanside forests that appear, shimmer, and fade. Without phytoplankton, life as we know it wouldn't exist. Earth's atmosphere was once almost devoid of oxygen until ancient photosynthetic microbes began producing it billions of years ago. Over time, they filled the air, making it breathable for animals, plants, and eventually us. Every atom of oxygen in your lungs right now is part of that ancient inheritance. Each breath is a handshake with the sea, and the relationship is constant. As you sit here, inhaling and exhaling, the ocean inhales and exhales with you. Phytoplankton release oxygen, while the sea absorbs carbon dioxide. It's a balancing act so seamless you rarely notice. If the ocean were to stop, even for a short time, the atmosphere would shift in ways we couldn't survive. The idea is both comforting and humbling. Every breath you take is shared with an ocean that stretches farther than your eyes can see. Of course, these tiny organisms aren't just serene oxygen factories. Some dinoflagellates are responsible for red tides blooms that produce toxins, discolor the water, and sometimes cause massive die-offs of fish and shellfish. Imagine your lungs working overtime and occasionally throwing a house party that gets out of control. That's phytoplankton, essential, but with a mischievous streak. And like much of the ocean, they're vulnerable. Climate change and warming waters disrupt their growth. Acidification shifts the chemistry of their shells. Pollution, especially from fertilizers, can cause explosive blooms in some regions while depleting populations in others. Because they're at the base of the food chain, any disruption ripples upward to affect everything from sardines to whales to us. The lungs of the earth are delicate, and they don't come with a spare. Still, they persist. Phytoplankton drift, multiply, and bloom in rhythms tied to sunlight and currents. They are both fragile and astonishingly resilient, adapting as they have for billions of years. Even now, they rise each morning with the sun, quietly flooding the water with oxygen that drifts upward into the sky, waiting for you to breathe it in. So tonight, as you inhale deeply before drifting to sleep, remember that part of that breath was written by the sea. A microscopic forest, invisible but infinite, rising and falling with the waves, breathing in sync with you. On land you have lungs, but in truth, the ocean is breathing too, and you are never inhaling alone. When wind brushes across Antarctica's massive ice shelves, they vibrate with eerie tones picked up by seismographs. The ocean basically plays ambient drone music 24/7, free of charge. Picture yourself standing at the edge of the frozen south, where glaciers stretch as far as the horizon. The air is thin, the cold sharp, and the silence almost total. But beneath that silence, the ice itself hums. Scientists discovered that as winds sweep across the Ross Ice Shelf, an expanse larger than France, the snow dunes and ice sheets vibrate, producing low-frequency sounds. Too deep for human ears, the ice shelf is essentially singing a constant, ghostly note. It's not a cheerful tune, it's more like a cathedral organ holding a single, unending chord. Imagine a soundtrack you didn't know was playing, one so deep that instead of hearing it, you feel it a subtle pressure on your chest, a vibration in your bones. The Antarctic landscape becomes less a place and more an instrument, an organ pipe carved from snow and silence. The phenomenon works because the ice shelf acts like a drum skin. Winds sculpt ridges and dunes across its surface. Then as gusts blow across them, vibrations ripple through the ice. Seismographs placed by researchers detect these subtle tremors, turning invisible music into measurable data. For scientists, the sound isn't just haunting, it's useful. Changes in pitch or rhythm can reveal cracks forming, melting ice, or shifting layers. In other words, the ice is not just playing music, it's offering weather reports in song form. It's the Earth's own ambient playlist. Unlike birdsong or whale calls, this music isn't alive, it's structural. The world itself, in its frozen geometry, produces a soundtrack. It makes you wonder how much of the planet is humming quietly beneath our notice. Mountains groaning, deserts whispering, forests vibrating with insect wings. Antarctica simply amplifies its voice through snow and wind. And though we can't hear it directly, the recordings are otherworldly. Scientists have sped up the data to make it audible, revealing tones like flutes or chanting choirs, a deep, resonant drone that sounds more like an alien instrument than anything earthly. It's easy to imagine explorers trudging across the ice, unaware that the ground beneath them is softly singing. There's a poetry in it. Antarctica, the coldest, driest, loneliest continent, is never truly silent. Even when no footsteps echo, no penguins call, no waves crash against the shore, the ice is humming. The song may be inaudible to us, but it never stops. It's like the continent is meditating, holding a single eternal breath. And this music tells us things we need to hear. Ice shelves are crucial for stabilizing glaciers. As they melt, sea levels rise. Listening to their vibrations allows scientists to monitor changes in real time, to track shifts in thickness, cracks, and temperature. The song of the ice becomes both a warning and a guide. For you, though, lying in bed, the thought can be strangely comforting. The planet is never silent. Even in its coldest, most remote corner, it plays. Not for applause, not for an audience, but simply because wind and ice can't help but create resonance. So tonight, imagine yourself bundled in layers, standing under a pale Antarctic sky. No traffic, no chatter, no phones, just an endless horizon of white. Beneath your boots, the ice hums in tones older than memory, deeper than speech. The Earth's quiet drone carries on, steady and calm, reminding you that even in stillness, there is always song. To eat, food passes through the middle of a squid's brain like chewing lunch through a bagel. It's a design that sounds absurd, yet somehow it works. Squid are among the ocean's great improvisations, soft-bodied, tentacled, and endlessly inventive. But their anatomy is a reminder that evolution doesn't care about elegance. Their brain, complex and intelligent, is shaped like a ring. Right in the center of that ring runs the esophagus, which means every time a squid eats, its food slides straight through the middle of its nervous system. If the meal is too large, it could damage the brain on its way down. Imagine your dinner having to pass directly through your thoughts before it reached your stomach. Messy, but efficient. Despite this questionable layout, squid are highly intelligent. They solve puzzles, navigate mazes, and can even learn by watching other squid. Their ring-shaped brain is packed with neurons, making them quick decision-makers in the open sea. They use their sharp minds to coordinate hunts, ambush prey, and, occasionally, to outsmart human researchers. It's proof that strange design doesn't prevent brilliance. Squid are masters of disguise, thanks to chromatophores' pigment-filled cells in their skin. With a squeeze of tiny muscles, they can change color instantly, blending into sand, coral, or the endless blue. Add reflective cells and light-producing organs, and they don't just camouflage, they dazzle. Some flicker patterns across their bodies like living billboards, others shimmer like moonlight, and some vanish entirely. If humans had this gift, you'd never need to buy new clothes, your skin would be the ultimate fashion collection. But camouflage is just one talent. Squid are also jet-propelled. By sucking in water and blasting it out through a siphon, they rocket backward with surprising speed. It's not smooth like a dolphin's swim, but more like firing yourself out of a squishy torpedo launcher. Combine this with ink clouds they release when threatened, and squid are escape artists worthy of a magician's act. Smoke bombs, quick exits, vanishing acts, they've been running the same playbook for millions of years. And their tentacles are as impressive as their brains. Two long feeding tentacles shoot out to grab prey, reeling it in toward their sharp beak, while the other arms hold it in place. Covered in suckers, some lined with teeth, their limbs are both tools and weapons. A squid's dinner doesn't just get eaten, it gets wrestled, reeled, and processed through a body designed for multitasking. Even reproduction adds to their strange reputation. Male squid pass on sperm packets using a modified arm, which they literally detach and hand over. Some species even insert it directly into the female's body cavity. It's not exactly roses and candlelight, but it gets the job done. Afterward, many squid die soon after reproducing, their brief lives spent in a single burst of survival and legacy. And yet, despite their short lives, squid shape the oceans. They're a crucial link in the food chain, feeding whales, fish, and seabirds. Their abundance makes them both prey and predator, fueling entire ecosystems. Without squid, the ocean's balance would wobble. Humans, of course, have long been fascinated by them. Myths of giant squid krakens rising from the deep to crush ships come from real sightings of colossal squid species, which can grow longer than a bus. Today, deep-sea cameras confirm they exist, massive and ghostly, with eyes the size of dinner plates. They remind us that even in our age of satellites and smartphones, the ocean still hides giants. So tonight, imagine drifting alongside one, a creature with a brain shaped like a donut, skin like a kaleidoscope, arms that reach, grab and pull, all moving with alien grace. Squid are absurd, elegant, terrifying and brilliant all at once, proof that evolution writes strange blueprints and life learns to thrive in the margins, even if it means eating dinner straight through the middle of your own brain. Starfish move and feed with a hydraulic system, pumping seawater through tiny tubes. It's less about a heartbeat and more about plumbing with star-shaped style. Unlike most animals, starfish don't have blood, veins, or even a heart. Instead, they run on water. Their bodies are built around a water vascular system, a network of canals that pulls in seawater through a small opening called the madreporite, basically a natural plumbing valve on their surface. From there, the water gets distributed through a series of tubes that extend into their arms. Pressure changes allow them to move tiny tube feet which work like little suction cups. It's locomotion powered not by muscles pumping blood, but by hydraulics pumping seawater. Each tube foot is a marvel in itself. Starfish have hundreds of them, lining the underside of their arms. By contracting muscles and shifting water pressure, the feet extend, attach to a surface, and pull the starfish forward in a slow, deliberate crawl. Individually, the movements look clumsy, but together they create a steady march across the seafloor. Imagine trying to walk by coordinating hundreds of tiny plunges. That's a starfish commute. Slow, silent, and oddly effective. This hydraulic system also helps with feeding. Starfish are famous for their ability to pry open clams and mussels, creatures with shells designed to stay tightly shut. Using their tube feet, they latch on, apply steady pressure, and patiently wait until the shell tires and opens slightly. Then comes the truly bizarre part. The starfish everts its stomach, turns it inside out, slips it into the crack, and begins digesting the prey externally before pulling its stomach back inside. It's less of a dinner table and more of a portable soup ladle shoved directly into the kitchen. Starfish aren't just plumbing systems with arms, though. They're surprisingly adaptable. Lose an arm? No problem. They can regrow it, and in some cases, a single severed arm can regrow an entirely new starfish if enough of the central disc remains. It's regeneration on a level humans can only dream of. Imagine spraining a wrist and accidentally growing a whole new you from it. Disturbing? Maybe. Efficient? Absolutely. And for an animal without a brain, they still manage coordination. Starfish have nerve rings encircling their central disc, with radial nerve cords extending down each arm. This decentralized nervous system allows them to sense touch, temperature, and even light. Tiny eye spots at the tips of their arms detect brightness, helping them orient toward reefs, rocks, or prey. They don't see the world the way we do, but they sense enough to survive and thrive. Starfish are also ecological engineers. By preying on mussels and barnacles, they keep populations in check, allowing biodiversity to flourish. In some ecosystems, they're considered keystone species. Remove them, and the balance of the community collapses. So while they may appear slow and simple, their presence shapes entire marine landscapes. There's beauty in their variety too. From the classic 5-armed species to sunstars with more than 20 limbs, starfish come in dazzling colors: red, blue, orange, purple. Their symmetry is radial, not bilateral like ours. They aren't built around left and right, but around a center point, as though they decided the best way to be an animal was to also be a mandala. And while they seem delicate, they've been around for about 450 million years. Long before mammals appeared, long before birds sang, starfish were crawling across ancient sea floors with their water-powered plumbing systems. Resilient, persistent, and undeniably weird, they've outlasted mass extinctions and continental drift. So tonight, as you lie still and breathe, picture a starfish moving patiently across the ocean floor, its tiny tube feet working in unison, its stomach flipping inside out to grab a meal, its arms sensing the faintest trace of light. No heartbeats, no blood, just water, hydraulics, and quiet persistence. A living reminder that life doesn't always need pumps and pulses. Sometimes, plumbing is enough. In coastal regions, certain amphibians can freeze into tiny ice blocks, thaw out months later, and hop away like nothing happened. Basically nature's first cryogenic subscription service. For most animals, freezing is the end of the story. Ice crystals slice through cells, water expands, and vital organs turn brittle. But for wood frogs and a handful of other species, winter isn't a death sentence, it's just a long pause. These frogs can literally freeze solid in the cold, heart stopped, lungs collapsed, brain activity flatlined. To a casual observer, they look dead. And yet, when spring arrives and temperatures rise, they thaw, restart, and leap away as if nothing unusual happened. The secret lies in chemistry. As the cold sets in, wood frogs flood their bodies with glucose and urea. Yes, the same compound that ends up in urine. This sugary, slightly toxic cocktail acts like antifreeze, preventing lethal ice crystals from forming inside cells. Instead, ice forms harmlessly in body cavities and between tissues, while the frog's organs remain protected. Think of it as wrapping delicate glassware in bubble wrap before putting it in the freezer. When thawing comes, the process reverses. The frog's heart begins to beat within minutes, circulation returns, and the animal reboots from its frozen state. No frostbite, no permanent damage, just a seamless transition from popsicle back to amphibian. Scientists studying them are still baffled by how such extreme shutdown and restart happens without chaos. If humans tried the same thing, we'd shatter like frozen fruit. Frogs? They shrug and hop away. This ability has clear survival value. In places like Alaska and Canada, winters are brutal. Burrowing deep underground isn't always an option, and staying active in the snow wastes too much energy. Freezing allows the frogs to sit out the cold without burning resources. They simply turn themselves into little amphibian ice cubes and wait for nature to flip the thermostat back up. And the strategy isn't unique to frogs. Some insects, turtles, and fish also use freeze tolerance, but frogs perfect the drama of it. Picture a leaf litter in late autumn, scattered with what looks like frozen frog statues. They're stiff, brittle, and unblinking. Months later, those same frogs come back to life. A tiny resurrection staged every spring. This natural cryogenics fascinates scientists for obvious reasons. If we could mimic their trick, organ transplants might last longer, or astronauts might one day travel through deep space in frozen stasis. Right now, human cryonics is more science fiction than science fact. But frogs prove that life can hit pause without losing its place in the story. That's frogs prove that life can hit pause, that life can hit pause. Of course, being frozen isn't without risks. If the temperature dips too low, or thawing happens too quickly, the frog can still die. Their survival depends on a delicate balance, enough freezing to endure winter, but not so much that tissues are damaged. It's an evolutionary gamble they've perfected over millions of years. Even more impressive, the frogs time it perfectly. As soon as ice touches their skin, they stop breathing, their hearts stop, and they let the freezing spread in a controlled way. It's not panic, it's surrender. Where most animals fight against the cold, wood frogs embrace it, leaning into the freeze until their entire body becomes a sculpture of patience. So, tonight, as you tuck into your blanket, imagine being able to shut down like that. Months of winter pass, snow piles up, and you skip the entire season like a skipped chapter in a book. Then spring sunlight hits, and you stretch, yawn, and hop away, completely refreshed. No damage, no memory of the cold, just life picking up where it left off. The wood frog's frozen pause reminds us that sometimes survival isn't about fighting through. Sometimes it's about waiting quietly, even when everything around you seems still, trusting that warmth will return. Unlike us, lobsters don't lose fertility as they grow older. In fact, the bigger they get, the more offspring they produce, like grandparents who suddenly out-party everyone at the reunion. For humans, aging is an uphill slope followed by a slow coast downward. Bones weaken, energy dips, and reproduction winds down. But lobsters laugh in the face of that trajectory if lobsters laughed, which they don't, because their mouths are built for crunching shells, not jokes. As they get older, their reproductive capacity doesn't shrink, it grows. A lobster at 70 years old can produce more offspring than it did at 20, flipping our usual idea of aging on its head. The secret lies partly in an enzyme called telomerase. In most animals, telomerase slows down or stops working in adulthood. Without it, DNA wears down over time, and cells stop dividing properly, contributing to aging. But lobsters keep producing telomerase throughout their lives. This constant maintenance keeps their cells dividing, repairing, and regenerating. It's as if their bodies have a permanent subscription to a cellular repair service, one we humans cancel after adolescence. This doesn't make them immortal, not exactly. Lobsters still face predators, disease, and the occasional human dinner plate. And while they can theoretically live to be over 100, they eventually hit practical limits. Molting, the process of shedding their shell and growing a new one, becomes riskier as they get older. Larger lobsters expend enormous energy to molt, and many eventually die during the process. Immortality, it turns out, is less about living forever and more about pushing the boundaries as far as possible until logistics catch up. Still, lobsters manage something extraordinary: negligible senescence. That's the technical term for creatures that don't show typical signs of aging. Their muscles don't weaken, their fertility doesn't drop, and their bodies don't seem to decline with time in the way ours do. Instead of a steep climb followed by a downhill slide, lobsters live on a long, flat plateau, continuing to grow and reproduce as if time were a rumor, and grow they do. Lobsters never stop increasing in size, adding weight and length with each molt. The largest on record weighed over 44 pounds, like holding a toddler that could snap your fingers off. These giants are rare but possible, proof that lobsters are on a slow, steady path to becoming living sea tanks. Their resilience has made them symbols of longevity, though their lives are anything but easy. They battle predators, live in cold, pressurized waters, and risk becoming dinner for humans who once considered them pests. In colonial America, lobsters were so plentiful they were used as fertilizer or prison food. Only later did they rise to luxury status, their resilience and abundance recast as delicacy. Beyond symbolism, scientists study lobsters for insights into aging. Could telomerase hold the key to slowing human decline? Could we learn from their biology to extend health, if not immortality? Research continues, but so far, lobsters keep their secrets locked in shells that are as difficult to crack scientifically as they are in the kitchen. And while lobsters don't die of old age in the way we do, their lives still end, sometimes dramatically, sometimes quietly. Even negligible senescence doesn't make you invincible when the ocean is full of cod, octopuses, and nets. So tonight, picture them marching slowly along the seafloor, armored in shells, antennae sweeping, eyes on stalks glowing faintly in the dark. They are ancient walkers, getting stronger, more fertile, more productive as the years go by. Where we see decline, they embody persistence. In the end, lobsters remind us that aging is not universal. It's just one strategy among many. And somewhere in the dark ocean, a lobster the size of a suitcase might still be strolling, utterly unfazed by decades, proving that sometimes time is less of an enemy and more of an endless horizon. Not snow as you know it, but a gentle drizzle of dead plankton, fish poop, and tiny skeletons raining down. It's the ocean's slow-motion confetti, decorating the abyss forever. Scientists call it marine snow, though that name makes it sound prettier than an island. This snow isn't fluffy or cold. It's a constant shower of organic debris drifting from the surface to the deep sea. Every flake is a mixture of tiny skeletons, fecal pellets, mucus, bacteria, and other particles that fall slowly, sometimes taking weeks to reach the bottom. It may not look glamorous under a microscope, but for creatures living miles below, this endless drizzle is survival. Near the surface, plankton bloom in the sunlight, feeding and multiplying in great numbers. But when they die, their remains sink. Tiny fish excrete waste, jellyfish shed fragments of tissue, bacteria package everything into clumps, and gravity does the rest. The ocean, vast as it is, has its own recycling system. Life feeds at the top, debris falls, and hungry mouths below wait for the snow to arrive. For deep-sea creatures, marine snow is a lifeline. Without sunlight, no photosynthesis can occur in the abyss. There are no leafy forests or grassy meadows to graze on. Instead, animals rely on this gentle rain of organic matter. Tube worms, brittle stars, and sea cucumbers gather the flakes like janitors sweeping a never-ending snowfall. Some filter feeders extend delicate arms or mucus nets to catch particles as they drift past. Others patrol the seafloor, sucking up the snow that has settled like dust on the carpet. And while marine snow sounds delicate, the numbers add up. Scientists estimate that gigatons of carbon fall from the surface every year. Some of it is eaten and recycled along the way, but much of it is buried in sediments, locked away for thousands or millions of years. This process helps regulate Earth's climate, pulling carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere and sinking it into the ocean floor. In other words, fish poop is one of the planet's great climate stabilizers. The snow isn't uniform. Sometimes it falls as tiny flakes, other times as sticky clumps the size of marbles. After large plankton blooms, snowstorms sweep the ocean, blizzards of organic material drifting downward like ghostly weather events. For the abyss, these are holidays, feasts that sustain ecosystems for months. Imagine living in a desert where food only arrives as occasional care packages dropped gently from above. That's daily life for the creatures of the deep. It isn't always clean. Along with plankton remains, plastic particles now drift among the snow, tiny fragments of bottles and bags making their way into the abyss. Microplastics mix with natural debris, infiltrating food webs. Even here, in the remotest depths, our fingerprints fall with the snow. The deep sea floor is both decorated by life and littered by us. But still, the cycle endures. Marine snow has fallen for as long as the ocean has been alive. Fossilized sediments on ancient seafloors preserve the history of plankton blooms and extinctions. Each layer is a chapter in Earth's story, written in the quiet handwriting of drifting particles. To study the past, scientists drill into these sediments, pulling up cores that reveal millions of years of snow pressed into stone. If you could drift down into the deep, you'd find yourself surrounded by silence, darkness, and the slow, steady fall of particles. Each flake is a tiny reminder of life above, a fragment of plankton, a shell from a microorganism, a hint of sunlight carried downward in material form. No sound, no rush, just snow falling forever. Too slow to see, but relentless all the same. So tonight, imagine yourself lying beneath that snowfall, not of ice, but of memory. A snow that feeds the deep, shapes the climate, and keeps the ocean's oldest cycles turning. Gentle, endless, and strangely comforting. The world's quietest confetti, falling in darkness, decorating the abyss in silence. Underwater currents flow like rivers, with cold, salty water plunging beneath warmer layers. In some places, these currents form waterfalls 10 times bigger than Niagara, but hidden below the waves. It sounds like fantasy rivers inside oceans, waterfalls that tumble without air, water flowing through water. But this is one of the ocean's stranger realities. Because seawater isn't uniform, it comes in layers of different temperatures and salinities. Colder, saltier water is heavier, so it sinks beneath warmer, lighter water. The result? Massive currents that behave like invisible rivers, sliding through the ocean with all the momentum of their terrestrial cousins. Nowhere is this more dramatic than between Greenland and Iceland, where one of the largest underwater waterfalls on Earth plunges more than 0 feet, almost 3 times taller than Angel Falls, the tallest waterfall on land. Here, dense Arctic water tumbles southward into the Atlantic, a cascade so vast it moves more than 100 times the flow of the Amazon River. Yet from the surface you'd never know it. The ocean looks flat, quiet, indifferent, while beneath, entire rivers are roaring in silence. This phenomenon is called thermohaline circulation, the global conveyor belt of the sea, driven by differences in temperature, thermo, and salt, haline. It moves water around the planet in a slow, steady system. Warm water flows north at the surface, cools, sinks, and flows southward in the depths. It's a loop that redistributes heat, balances climates, and keeps the Earth habitable. Without it, weather would unravel, tropical regions would scorch, and polar regions would freeze even harder. The hidden rivers aren't just curiosities, they're planetary lifelines. underwater rivers exist on smaller scales too. In the Black Sea and Gulf of Mexico, dense flows of salty water from channels form rivers complete with banks, rapids, and even waterfalls. Divers exploring these submerged rivers describe drifting along channels that look eerily like landscapes on land, except the banks are made of sand and the trees are replaced by coral. It's a reminder that water, when layered, builds its own geography beneath the waves. And then there are brine pools, lakes of ultra-salty water sitting at the bottom of the ocean. Heavier than the seawater above, they form distinct boundaries with rippling shores and surfaces you can see. A crab that wanders in can't survive. The brine is too salty, too harsh, to divers. It looks like a lake within a sea, complete with waves lapping against a beach that shouldn't exist. Nature, it seems, enjoys layering its liquids. These hidden rivers and waterfalls don't just shape landscapes, they shape lives. Nutrients carried by currents fuel plankton blooms, feeding fish and whales. Migratory animals follow temperature boundaries like road maps, navigating invisible rivers as they cross oceans. Even coral reefs depend on the movement of warm and cool layers, thriving in the balance created by circulation. The hidden waterfalls aren't just spectacles, they're architects of ecosystems, yet they remain unseen. You could sail across the Denmark Strait, directly above the world's largest waterfall, and never suspect it was there. No roar, no mist, no rainbow, just the illusion of calm, while beneath, water tumbles with unimaginable force. It's like driving across a bridge with no idea there's a canyon yawning below. The ocean hides its drama under a mask of tranquility. So tonight, imagine drifting in those hidden rivers, cold streams sliding beneath warm, entire cascades tumbling in the dark, silent and enormous. You're floating above waterfalls bigger than anything on land, yet invisible to the eye. The ocean's hidden plumbing keeps the planet breathing, shaping weather, climate, and life itself. It's humbling to think the world's greatest waterfalls don't thunder in daylight, they whisper in darkness. Rivers flowing within seas, waterfalls falling without air, a secret geography beneath the waves. The ocean doesn't just cover the earth. It folds, tumbles, and circulates within itself, forever building worlds we'll never fully see. And so, we've drifted through the ocean's secrets, its glow, its silence, its relentless depth. You've floated among whales who sing louder than stadium speakers, sponges that work without brains, and ancient sharks who remember a world before trees. You've seen creatures that rewrite their own biology, rivers hidden beneath the sea, and plankton quietly refilling your lungs with every breath. The ocean is not just water, it's the Earth's memory. It's a blanket that has covered us for ages, sheltering storms, carrying ships, and hiding entire kingdoms in the dark. It's both terrifying and hilarious, like realizing your bathtub contains both a rubber duck and an abyss that could swallow Mount Everest. But here's the comforting part. Tonight, you're not in the abyss. You're in a bed, with gravity, with breathable air that doesn't taste like salt, with a blanket that doesn't weigh 1.4 billion trillion tons. The ocean will keep doing its work, storing heat, making oxygen, humming with whales while you simply rest. So as you close your eyes, maybe whisper a quiet thank you to the water world that makes this one possible. Because science may be strange, absurd, and full of fish that liquefy themselves, but it's also proof of resilience, creativity, and the ridiculous persistence of life. Breathe in, exhale slowly, and let yourself sink, not into the sea, but into sleep.